Today is Saturday, July 18th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we're on Bill's story. We will be reading page 8. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on Step 2. We'll read page 30, and we'll read NA's Just for Today and Al-Anon's Courage to Change. So with that, hope you all are doing well this beautiful Saturday morning, my friends. Life is good over here. We have been given a brand new set of 24 hours. Also, as I'm recording this, we received an email today. It was one of the first things I woke up to, and it just blessed me, and I immediately thanked my higher power. So this is from our dear friend, Joanna from the UK. Good morning, Rob. Over here in the UK, today I wake up 2 years sober. I just want to say how refreshing it is to hear you every morning, even on the Stepmaster at the gym. I live a new life, a free life from alcohol and drugs, from pain and resentments, relating to you over the sea. Thanks again. Wow, thank you so much, Joanna, and congratulations on 2 years of sobriety. That blows my mind. That's just another miracle. And she's exactly right. Some of my favorite words I've heard to describe sobriety in the program is safety. And then, as Joanna says, freedom. Freedom from what? She says, from the pain and the resentments and the bondage of self and all these things, What a blessing. It's just further confirmation that my higher power is working. And Joanna, you have blessed me today. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations. And with that beautiful note, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends. So if you recall from yesterday's reading out of Bill's story, he is in bad shape. Now, one blessing that we saw yesterday is that he did get to meet Dr. Silkworth, who explained his whole theory, right, about the mental obsession and the physical allergy. So Bill comes home and he's like, oh, I know what the problem is. I know I have a problem now and it's this, and now I have self-knowledge, so that'll be enough. But we find out for him it is not enough. And certainly for me it was not enough. So he once again has the day where he relapses, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And then finally, at the top of page 8, he says, I who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. He thinks he's going to die. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. What an image that is, right? I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. Pretty powerful, right? Sounds like he's about to take step 1 here, if he hasn't already. But guess what? How dark it is before the dawn. We're about to get to some good stuff. I think we meet Ebby in the next page, but that's going to be the beginning of a whole new life for Bill. So we're on page 8, halfway down. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital a broken man. Fear sobered me for a bit. Then came that insidious insanity of that first drink. And on Armistice Day 1934, I was off again. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere, or would stumble along until a miserable end. How dark it is before the dawn. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the 4th dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through that night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a bottle full of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wonder how he escaped. Of course he could have dinner. Then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought of only recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time that we chartered an airplane to complete the jag. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. At the 12 and 12, we are on step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I love the breakdown of this chapter between, it's a conversation between a sponsor and a sponsee. And the sponsor has addressed the ones who refuse to believe, and then the ones who have a prejudice towards religion, and he's still in the middle of that right now. But one of the beautiful things that we just left off on yesterday was on the top of page 30, where it says, "By their example, they showed us that humility and intellect could be compatible, provided we placed humility first." As one of my dear friends would always say, be teachable. There's something we can learn from everybody around us and everything around us. I love that. Humility and intellect can work together, provided we place humility first. Great stuff. So we're going to build on that on page 30. Another crowd of AA says, "We were plumb disgusted with religion and all of its works. The Bible, we said, was full of nonsense. We could cite a chapter and verse, and we couldn't see the Beatitudes for the begats. In spots, its morality was impossibly good, and in others it seemed impossibly bad. But it was the morality of the religionists themselves that really got us down. We gloated over hypocrisy, bigotry, and crushing self-righteousness that clung to so many believers in their Sunday best. How we loved to shout the damaging fact that millions of the good men of religion were still killing one another off in the name of God. This all meant, of course, that we had substituted negative for positive thinking. After we came to AA, we had to recognize that this trait had been an ego-feeding proposition. In belaboring the sins of some religious people, we could feel superior to all of them. Moreover, we could avoid looking at some of our own shortcomings. Self-righteousness, the very thing that we had contemptuously condemned in others, was our own besetting evil. This phony form of respectability was our undoing, so far as faith was concerned. But finally, driven to AA, we learned better. NA just for today, July 18th. The gift of desperation. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation, we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. Basic text, page 13. When we think of being desperate, we envision an undesirable state. A poor, bedraggled soul frantically clawing at something sorely needed. A desperate look in the eyes. We think of hunted animals, hungry children, and ourselves before we found NA. Yet it was the desperation that we felt before coming to NA that compelled us to accept the first step. We were fresh out of ideas, and so became open to new ones. Our insanity had finally risen higher than our wall of denial, forcing us to get honest about our disease. Our best efforts at control had only worn us out. Hence, we became willing to surrender. We had received the gift of desperation, and as a result, we're able to accept the spiritual principles that make it possible for us to recover. Desperation is what finally drives many of us to ask for help. Once we reach this state, we can turn around and start anew. Just as the desperate hunted animals seek a safe haven, so do we in Narcotics Anonymous. Just for today, the gift of desperation has helped me become honest, open-minded, and willing. I am grateful for this gift because it has made my recovery possible. Courage to Change, July 18th. We often come to Al-Anon with the philosophy that if something works, it will work even better and faster if we try harder. But Al-Anon involves a long-term process of growth and change. Our efforts to speed up this process are more likely to interfere with it, leaving us frustrated and depressed. In Al-Anon, we learn that easy does it. The work often gets done when we stop pushing. When I first came to Al-Anon, I heard that although we learn to entrust our lives and our future to a power greater than ourselves, we must do our part as well. With my usual fervor, I threw myself in doing footwork. I made at least 10 Al-Anon calls every day and began a frantic effort to practice all 12 steps at once. No wonder I was soon overwhelmed and exhausted. Today, I know that I can plant a seed in fertile soil. But I don't help the plant grow by tugging at the seed and hope that it will sprout. I have to let the process unfold at its own pace. Today's reminder: I take my commitment to recovery seriously, but I can't expect to recover overnight. When I approach my life with an easy-does-it attitude, I treat myself and the world around me gently and lovingly. When we try to absorb too much too quickly in Al-Anon, we may be discouraged. We will be wise to take it slowly, concentrating on one idea at a time. One day at a time in Al-Anon. All right, my friends, that concludes today's reading. It's some beautiful stuff, and I love how Bill writes. A little earlier, we were just talking about the quicksand that stretched all around us, right? In our alcoholism. And then in the next paragraph, he's already foreshadowing. He's like, oh, just wait. How dark it is before the dawn. And I said that right before we read, completely forgetting that's actually on this page. But it says here, in reality, that was the beginning of the last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted in what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. So like a whole new life, right, that he's never experienced before. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Now that is a beautiful way to describe sobriety. That it's happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way that just gets better and better over time. That's been my experience. Now, is it all rainbows and sunshine? No. But it's certainly richer and better. Oh man, just beautiful the way he describes that. So he's talking about Ebby here making a visit, and that is going to play a profound difference in Bill's life. I love that. And then going to the 12 and 12, talking about prejudice. I've done this. Where I used to look at all the religious people in the world and go, man, they're a bunch of hypocrites and, a bunch of narrow-minded people and all these things. I was thinking these. I never said them out loud, but I was thinking that, right? But here's the real truth. I was using it as an excuse not to go. I was failing to see the entire picture that, you know what, there's a lot of good people trying to do the right thing out there. I was the one that had the closed mind, lumping them all into one category, and that wasn't right. And honestly, it was a deflection. Again, it was that was my justification for not believing in God or not going to church or any other fellowship or anything like that, because I just didn't want to go. I was afraid or confused and didn't quite understand, or lazy. It was maybe all three. When I became willing to look for the good, I certainly found it. There have been people in my life that were religious and believed in God that really tried. They weren't perfect, but they'd also be the first ones to admit they weren't perfect. I think of my grandmother and so many others. It's beautiful stuff. So, I was the one with the closed mind. I was the bigot, right? But yeah, beautiful stuff. And then finally, the gift of desperation. When all of my options had run out and I had tried everything else I could possibly think of to be sober, and I'm just getting worse and worse, I knew I needed help. And that's the gift, right? Finally admitting, I can't do this alone. Please help me. And on the other side of that is exactly what Bill was talking about. That happy, useful, and free life that just gets better and better and better. And I heard this beautiful quote from a lady who had 40 years of sobriety yesterday. And she said a couple of things. She said, bring the body and the mind will follow. A lot of times we have to take the action first before we can kind of mentally get there. Whether that's going to a meeting or just getting out of the bed, whatever. But another thing she said is, let's take the stones that we stumble over and build an altar. The very worst parts of my life, now my higher power can use to help somebody else. And I think that is beautiful. But my friends, I've rambled on way over. I hope you all have a good one today. Please know, as always, I don't speak on behalf of NA, Al-Anon, AA, any other sector denomination. I'm just a joyful drunk in this lifeboat of recovery, honored to be here another day. And if we're given another set of 24 hours, my friends, I sincerely look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.